So here we are, medieval history. I'm going to give you a brief overview of medieval history because my guess is, I'm just guessing, you've never had a course on medieval history before. Now, maybe in a Western Civ class or some other class, you've covered generally medieval history. So we'll kind of go through it. Now, even on this date where it says circa, the Latin, circa, around, about 500. Really, I think I would probably make that earlier now. I made this PowerPoint a while back. But for the purposes of this course, it's definitely earlier than 500. We're going to go back almost to like 250. And we're going to go to 1,000. So that's quite a bit, 250 to 1,000. It's like 700, 800, not quite 800, 700 years, 750 years we're going to be covering in this class. Now, it's an overlooked section of history for a lot of people. People study the classical period, right? Greeks, the Romans, that gets a lot of press. That's the girl you want to take to the prom right there, the Greeks and the Romans. I guess since we have no ladies in here, I can use examples that are just all male-based. Although since I'm recording this and it's going to be on YouTube, I'm probably going to get in trouble. But in other words, that's the popular one, right? Greeks and Romans. And then, of course, after that, you've got the Renaissance. Well, this is like the older sister or the younger sister of the Greeks and the Romans, right? So, see, now you are trying to get me in trouble. So, right, you got the Renaissance, and you got the Greco-Roman period, and then, what's left in the middle? Oh, the Middle Ages. The medieval world. That's literally how it got its name. It got its name because it's not the two popular periods, right? Yeah, right. So if you ever watch, what was the old Brady Bunch, right? There's Marcia, and then there's Jan. So the medieval period is Jan. It's not Marcia. Okay? Does that make sense? Well, so that is literally where the name comes from. It is the Middle Ages. It's in between these two periods. The one period's Greco-Roman, and then the Renaissance is a rebirth of the Greco-Roman. And what about all that other stuff? Well, we don't really want to talk about that other stuff. It's there, but... And so some people have even characterized it as the Dark Ages. Ever heard anybody call it that? The Dark Ages. Why? Well, because there's nothing there. There's no light. There's no knowledge. Nothing's happening. Everybody is just going around, with sticks and, I don't know, trying to start fires and killing each other. That's what a lot of people think of. I don't know what you think of when you think of the Middle Ages or the medieval period. I guess I could go around and ask you, but maybe too late for that now because I've already loaded the dice. But you get the idea, right? But there is a lot in this period, and in fact, it's divided into three periods. The medieval period is divided into three periods. Early, middle, and late. Now, they don't call them middle. You have early Middle Ages, but you don't want to have Middle Ages. And then you have late Middle Ages. So the Middle Ages is usually called the High Middle Ages. That's when things are the most creative. That's when most innovation. And then the late Middle Ages is probably what sort of tarnishes all the Middle Ages because that's where a lot of people did die. I guess it's kind of dark. You have the bubonic plague and you have a lot of people dying. But that's a rather relatively short period of the history. It's maybe 150, 200 years of this whole over 1,000-year period. Okay? I hear all that noise out there makes me think class is over, but I guess they just got out early because they don't have somebody like me. Too ambitious. Now, one of the things you can think of about the medieval period that's definitely different, for the most part, of the Greco-Roman and the Renaissance, but certainly the Greco-Roman, is that you just have one religion. We're talking about Europe, of course, right? Talking about Europe. We're not talking about medieval Japan or something. We're talking about medieval Europe. And in medieval Europe, we have one religion. That religion is Christianity. And in fact, that religion is the Roman Catholic Church. In Western Europe, that is the only church. There are some, a few fringe groups out there, probably called heretical groups by many, but not much. The bulk of everybody, 95% plus of all the people, maybe 98%, are Roman Catholic. Yes, there are some Jews. You might have an occasional Muslim running around somewhere. You might have some other sort of fringe group. But basically, you've got the only thing that sort of unifies the Middle Ages, or let's say one of the most unifying things about the Middle Ages throughout this over a millennia is the church. You got different languages, you got different cultures, you got all kinds of different leaders and things come and go. But the one thing that stays is the church, right? The Roman Catholic Church. I call it the RCC, the Roman Catholic Church. I usually abbreviate it RCC. So we have one religion, one institution that really overarches everything, and that is the church. In this case, the church centered in Rome. We have one kind of government for most of this period, and that is some form of a monarchy, some form of a top-down kind of ruler. Okay? So we're going to talk about the early period, which is really the decline of the Roman Empire. So there's still some emperors around and a lot of upheaval. And then what emerges then are still central sort of rule of one. That's what monarchy means, from the Greek word archon, which means to rule, and mono, which of course means one. So monarchy, or rule of a dictator, rule of an emperor, rule of a king. And the thing that's going to develop towards the end of the period that we're talking about is a feudal society. And we're going to see the roots of it here in this early class. What do I mean by a feudal society, or sometimes called feudalism? Some people don't like to use that word feudalism, so they call it a feudal society. But basically, that is the exchange of land, or the use of land, for loyalty and service. So let's imagine I am the king, right? And each of these double desks in here is a piece of my kingdom. They're all my desks, but I'm going to let you control those two, or those two, right? See? So you become the duke of those two tables. Those two. But I'm the king of the whole thing. Now, why would I let you use that like it's your own? Because you're going to pledge to me that you're going to be loyal. You're not going to do anything to erode my power. Then, in fact, you're also not only going to take an oath of loyalty, but you're going to take an oath of service. So if somebody starts storming the door here, as they will probably in another 15 minutes, I will then call upon you and press you into service to hold the door. Right? Don't let the enemy in. That's how I create an army. In the medieval period, we don't have enough people, we don't have enough money or resources to have a standing army. That's something to think about. So when we will read about battles, there'll be plenty of battles and a lot of fighting that goes on in this period. But the way that this happens is, unlike, say, the Roman Empire, we had soldiers, professional soldiers, right? Remember, this is the going to the prom period. So they had a standing army, and they had generals, and they go out and conquer stuff, and then he would take care of his soldiers, and that was their job. They were soldiers. But this is going to transition into a whole different kind of way of having a military. And that means the military is going to be, it's not voluntary, but it's not full-time. Okay? So, for example, if one of you signed up for the military, you would probably expect in doing that they would pay you something. You would probably expect at the minimum that they would give you what you needed, like a uniform, a gun, whatever equipment you're going to use. That's not the way it was in the medieval world. You had to provide your own uniform, so to speak. You had to provide your own weapons. You want to ride a horse? You got to provide the horse. You got to outfit the horse. You're going to wear armor? You got to have your own armor. And guess what? You're going to need somebody to help you put that armor on, because it's not easy to get it on and off. And it's not easy to get up on your horse when you're wearing the armor. So you're going to have someone who helps you do all that stuff. That's expensive. You're going to be a knight or something. That's not a cheap thing. And the king's not paying for that. You are. Okay. By the way, even as some of you are probably taking a Civil War class. Are you taking a Civil War class? 2 of you, 3 of you? In the Civil War period, you know how it was decided if you were in the infantry or in the cavalry? It was if you had a horse. If you brought a horse with you, and you had a saddle and everything goes with it, and you could take care of your horse, guess what? You're now in the cavalry. Otherwise, you're in the infantry. Infantry, all you need are feet. Helps to have shoes. We're not giving you those either. Right? That's how it was decided. So the wealthier people were typically in the cavalry because they had horses and saddles, and they had to feed their horse and water their horse. That was all up to them to take care of the horse. Even as recently as the Civil War in the United States. Even in World War I, they used horses, believe it or not. And you had to provide your own horses for the most part and take care of them. Well, anyway, gets us far afield of the Middle Ages. Now, the other thing to remember is the medieval society, its economy is a barter system primarily, at least in the beginning, in this early period, and it's all definitely agriculturally based. The primary way anybody makes any money is through agriculture, and of course to do that you got to have land. So by the king owning the land, the king owns the means of production, if you want to think of it that way. You want to grow wheat? You got to have land to grow it. You got to have fields to grow it in. You don't have those fields because I own them. You want to use them? Well, we'll work something out. Okay? So, that's another way to think about it. If you want to think about it economically, it's based in agriculture. Agriculture. By the way, even here in the United States, until fairly recently, our economy was very heavily in agriculture. I mean, we're still in a lot of agriculture. But I'm saying 100 years ago. If I ask you right now, how many of you grew up on a farm and the primary income for your family is farming? Anybody? No, nobody. See? Now, if I would have asked that 100 years ago, it would have been several people. Because that's just the way it was. Okay? So, our economy has shifted in, say, the last 100 years or so. And the economy of 100 years ago was a lot closer to the medieval economy we might like to think. Although we had gone through the Industrial Revolution, so obviously there have been changes. But agriculture in the medieval period, remember, we don't have really machines, right, for you to rage against. We don't have them. By the way, just a sideline, when the robots take over, I'm just telling you right now, I'm on their side, okay? Just like when the monkeys take over, on their side too. I'm just letting you know, right, at the zombies, I'm on their side. I'm going with the numbers here. I know it's not very loyal, but you're not going to beat the robots in the end. I don't really think we're going to do it, so I'm going to be on their side. And I can't outrun those zombies, especially those Brad Pitt zombies. No way you're going to outrun those guys. They go like 40 miles an hour, and they can climb like a 40-foot wall. I saw the movie. I know. Anyway. So anyway, yeah, World War Z. Yeah, that's it. they show this wall, like they show like this mob of zombies. They're like up in a helicopter or something. And here they're just like, they're moving really fast. And they're coming up to this big wall. And I'm thinking, okay, you got to know. They start climbing on top of each other. They stand on their shoulders, go right over the top. Just like ants, basically. Like ants get into things. So. All right, so I'm just telling you. Skynet is real. It's coming for you. We got drones now.
Brightspace.
We got Brightspace. It's got its drones. They're listening to me right now. Wait a minute. I didn't mean any of it. It's all very good. I love it all. All right, let's move on. I do have a phone somewhere. That's how they listen to me when I'm walking around. They can see me. Anyway. Limited literacy. That's hard to say when you're tired. Limited literacy. What do I mean by that? That the world, of course, had been very literature-based in the Roman period. Greco-Roman period had a lot of written documents and stuff. But a lot of that is lost. People's ability to read and write, a lot of that's lost for a long time. A lot of the documents themselves are lost through all the invasions. We're going to talk about some of those. And so people begin to base their knowledge, they begin to base their ideas upon oral, what we might call oral history, oral tradition, whatever. I'll give you an example. I lived for a long time in Kentucky, okay? Eastern part of Kentucky. Okay? So, people take their property ownership quite, I don't know about Florida, but I know in Kentucky they take it very seriously. Like in the town where I lived, the little town where I lived, there was a guy, I'll just give you this one, I'll try to make it brief, because we got things to do. But this guy was mowing his yard, right? And so this other guy had the property next to his, but the guy didn't really live there, and the other guy didn't like that he didn't mow his grass the way he thought he should, or as often as he should, or something. So that guy started mowing some of that guy's grass because, it was right near his house, and he just wanted it to look nice. So this guy told him, I don't want you on my property. Do not mow the grass on my property. That's my property. That's my grass. I'll mow it when I want to mow it. They have all these laws like they got around here now. And I'll mow when I want to mow it. And one day, guy was out there mowing. He's on a riding mower. Guy was across the road with a rifle. Shot him right off the lawnmower. Anyway, so I'm saying people take property things very seriously. Now, let's say we had that and I wanted to determine my property line. And let's say somebody comes, we still got a minute. If somebody comes and says, okay, this is my property and I'm showing you this piece of paper saying this is mine. I'm going to say, my father, my grandfather, my great-grandfather told me this is our land. It goes from this stump to that rock and over there, and that's the border of our land. You come in here, show me a piece of paper, which I probably can't read anyway, and you tell me that's not my land? Are you saying my father's a liar? My grandfather's a liar? Who am I going to trust? You or my grandfather? That's taking an oral world, and later on they're going to have to try to impose literature back on it, documents and stuff. Most of the time when the government wants to give you some papers, it's not good news for you. Let me just tell you. All right, we better end it there. Be sure to check